Okay, I was asked to do a short demo of how I do stitching without a stitching pony, whether it's sitting on a table or maybe I'm sitting in my easy chair in the living room. You can do this anywhere. It's just a matter of getting used to dealing with two needles and maybe a long piece of thread and holding pieces together and all of that sort of thing. And I was given a great tip today, which I never thought of, by Kathy Jacobs. So I've been using these positioning pins to hold my pieces together, which I highly recommend you getting these if you decide that you're going to continue hand stitching. These will be a lifesaver for certain. They come in different sizes. I bought the longest one. I don't know off the top of my head what the length is, but I bought the longest one. Got them on Amazon, not expensive, highly recommend. However, if you don't have them at the moment, maybe you're waiting for them to show up and you really want to get going on your stitching, Kathy gave me a great idea. So you would need to thread a piece of your scrap thread that you have left over, thread it on your needle, just put it through the hole and tie it together. Okay, really simple as that to hold these in place. Just put it in there and tie a knot to hold it together, and you've got something, a second hand, if you will, third hand, I should say, until your positioning needles come in. Well, thank you, Kathy, for that. Okay, so if I'm sitting in my easy chair, I would have a pillow in my lap. And that's helpful because if I need to set my needles down, then I can just jab them in the pillow. Super simple. However, I'm standing at my work table, so I'm using my little pony that came as a gift. Sorry, it's a voodoo doll now. For one of my needles, and then I have my magnetic tray for the other. Anytime I want to set my needles down, anytime you want to set your needles down, I highly recommend that you do not just set them down somewhere. Set them down in a place that you know where to find them. And it's also recommended that you don't set them down if you don't have to. Okay, so with that said, we're going to get started. I'm right-handed, so I always start on the right, meaning the right hand versus the left hand, not necessarily the right side of the leather. And in most cases, you would probably start on the wrong side of the leather. But again, follow the instructions in the tutorial because there may be a special circumstance where you would not do that. All I've done here is place two pieces of leather. They are both right side facing. It's just how I happen to lay them. Do not pay any attention to that. This is just to show you how to do the stitching. So I'm going to start on the right side. I'm going in the first hole, bringing it through the back. Okay. And I'll tell you a little tip that you can do. This is just to make it a little faster. I then take the second needle and put it in the second hole. Okay. And pull it through. Just like that, as long as your needles are lined up together when you pull it through, you have your first half of your stitch already created, and the lengths of thread are even on both sides. Okay, so let's separate these to see what we have. We have our leading thread. Now I did the no-no and set my needles down, but I wanted to show you. We have our leading thread and our following thread. And again, this is a leapfrog process where this thread's going to end up in this hole, and then that thread's going to end up in that hole. So it's moving forward in this fashion, okay? So what I like to do to keep my rhythm going at a even routine, I develop a system where I always grab my leading thread and pull it underneath the following thread, okay? So then I'm going to grab both of those threads, knowing that my leading thread is under my following thread, and I'm pulling back. I'm giving a little resistance with my fingers. You don't have to pull hard, okay? So now I need my following thread, which is here, to go in that same hole that that leading thread came out of. So I'm just gonna put it in. I'm pulling back. Now, I'm not going to lie that this is a little awkward at first because here you're trying to pull threads, hold the piece together, make sure you don't pierce the thread, get through 2 layers in the hole. It's a struggle sometimes. But what I will tell you is once you get down here a few ways, it gets easier. So the struggle is only in the beginning. But what you want to pay attention to is that you did not pierce that thread. Okay, so pull it through. Pull it through. And now you've created your first stitch on both sides. Okay, so now I'm going to go forward again. Now I'm going to put my needles in both my hands. I have my right side needle in my right hand. I have the back side needle in my left hand. This applies for both left and right-handed. The only difference is when you start your first stitch with each hole, you would be starting on the left side instead of the right. So it's really more of an ambidextrous process because you do have to use both hands at some point. So I'm just going to pick up the leather. Now you could position these closer down here to start with, tie a thread closer to start with to help keep those layers together. But I'm holding it with my fingers. I'm going to put that needle in that hole, go through. Now let me show you a step that I like to do that makes things maybe a little bit faster and a little easier. This is not something you're going to want to try right off the bat. Well, maybe you will, but it takes getting used to the rhythm that you've developed first. So you notice I put the needle in the next hole halfway through. I'm going to take my following thread. The needle taps the back of that needle. So now I've created a cross, right? I'm going to put my index finger underneath that needle that's behind the the horizontal needle. So I've got a vertical needle behind a horizontal needle. I'm going to support that with both my index finger and my thumb. And then I'm going to pull it through. And as I pull it through, I'm going to take these 3 fingers and I'm going to grab this thread. As I grab it, I'm pulling the thread through and rotating my hand. Now this takes a little maneuvering because now I got to grab all these threads to get them out of the way. But now I can enter that hole in front of that thread at the 12 o'clock position and go through with that second needle coming through to the front. And again, probably shouldn't do this right off the beginning where you only have a few stitches because you have to be able to find that hole, right? But there it is. So now I have that second needle in there. The first needle is already out. I'm just going to take these and separate them so you can see what I'm doing. Before I pull that needle all the way through, this is the one that's still inside there that I just put, right? And it's not all the way, it hasn't been pulled all the way through. If you pull on that needle, you pull on that thread and you see it's going through, but the needle is not moving, that tells you that you have not pierced that thread inside between the layers. So pull it through, and it's a challenge sometimes. Pull these all the way through. When you get down here close to the end, and I'm going to pull these closer so you can see what I'm doing. You see how they're twisted? I want you to untwist those as much as you can because it'll show twisted on the outside of your leather. Where the stitches, it'll be twisted. So pull them as straight as you can and snug it down. Okay. Again, I'm going to go in. Let's just do it the regular way. I'm going to go in with my right side. I'm going to grab the needle that was on the back side. The thread that's on the back side is in this hand on my left. I'm going to swap it out, put it over my right so that I can pull this thread through to the left side. Okay. I pulled it through. So now you've got your third stitch there, but not completed on the back. This is your leading thread. This is your following thread. I want my leading thread to be under my following thread. So you see how I didn't change hands. All I did was switch with my fingers. But you do need to switch the needles if you're left-handed dominant, if you're right-handed dominant, and you just want to always put the needle in with one hand, it's going to be a challenge. You have to be able to learn to use both hands. So now I'm going to bring that following thread through, holding back on the stitches, putting some pressure, making sure I haven't pierced the thread on either side, because you can see that space that was created in front of the thread. Pull it through. See, setting it down, this is what happens. Really bad idea. So now I've got this all twisted so you can see, okay, we're good. We do not want to get tangled, and it happens really, really easily. So now we have our 3 stitches here. One more time. I'm starting on the right. Now, maybe it's a good habit to hold on to both of those. Start on the right, go in the first hole, the next available hole. Grab your left needle, the left-sided needle. With your left hand, pull that first needle through, creating your first half of the stitch. You can flip this over if it makes it easier. I try not to do that because it just takes more time and it's awkward. So now here's what I'm doing. If I flip it over, I can actually enter the hole with my dominant hand each time. If you flip and flip and flip, you can always enter the hole with your dominant hand if that's what you prefer. So here's my following thread. It is laying over the top of my leading thread. I'm putting it in that hole. I'm flipping over before I bring it through. I flip over to make sure that it's not pierced and pull it through. Just like that. Okay. So as you start going and you get more length in the stitching done, this becomes easier to accomplish. Okay. And try the pillow, try the ponies, the voodoo dolls, try a magnet dish, right? And see what works best for you and see what system and rhythm that you develop to make sure that these stitches are consistent, because that is key. They will show if they're wonky at all, like we showed you before, they will show. I hope this helps. Please let me know if you need any more help.